There's something no one tells you when your bank account hits zero, when you silently calculate if you'll make it through the week, when your heart beats faster. Not from love, but from fear. Fear of not making it to the end of the month. Fear of having to tell your child that this time there's no gift. Fear of hearing the phone ring and knowing it's another debt. Fear of staring at a half-empty fridge and pretending everything's okay. Because when money is scarce, it's not just food or shelter that's missing. You lack peace, you lack sleep, you lack dignity. And in the middle of that emptiness in your stomach, guilt shows up too. That voice screaming in your ear. How did you let it get this far? Why weren't you more careful? What kind of adult can't even sustain their own life? Modern life demands performance, productivity, success. But no one teaches you what to do when your economy collapses, when everything trembles, when even your self-worth starts depending on the balance in your bank account. And it's right there, at that breaking point, that this Stoic session is born. Because Stoicism wasn't created in marble halls surrounded by luxury. It was born in the middle of chaos, hunger and ruin. It was born to bring meaning to adversity. And to remind you of something you may have forgotten. You are not your bank account. You are not your debts. You are not your financial failures. You are your capacity to choose how you respond to all of that. Seneca lived it. He lost fortunes, was exiled, and still wrote about inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, ruled through plagues and wars, knowing that power without peace is just a gilded cage. Epictetus, enslaved, taught that true wealth lies in the soul, not in possessions. Today their wisdom travels through time to meet you exactly where you are, in the moment you're about to give up, in the instant you feel like you can't take it anymore, in the place where money is gone, but there's still one decision left to make. Will you break along with your finances, or will you hold your calm and rebuild from within? Because when everything seems lost, the most valuable thing you can keep is your peace. This isn't just a pretty phrase, it's an urgent necessity, because without calm, there's no clarity. And without clarity, any attempt to escape the crisis just creates more chaos. This session isn't here to promise you wealth or magical fixes. We won't tell you to think abundantly. While you have to choose between paying the electric bill or buying bread, we'll speak to you with truth, with practical philosophy, with tools born from soul discipline, with the same principles that carried men and women who lost everything, yet still moved forward with dignity. Because if the money is gone, but your virtue remains, then you haven't lost anything irrecoverable. This is not just another talk, it's an act of resistance. An internal revolution, a reunion with the only thing that can't be repossessed, your inner strength. Breathe, you're here, and that in itself is a first step. Now if you're ready to stop being a victim of fear, if you're willing to choose serenity, even while everything burns, then stay, because what's coming isn't just a guide. It's an ancestral reminder that calm is worth more than any currency. Before we begin, I want you to declare your commitment by writing in the comments, "From today on, I choose calm over chaos." That phrase will be your anchor in the middle of the storm, the reminder that you are not defined by what you lack, but by the peace you choose to cultivate. This is the moment to prove to yourself that your dignity has no price, and your serenity is more valuable than any number in a bank account. Now, without further delay, let's begin. Stoic lesson. First, calm is worth more than money. There's a silent truth that many only discover in the midst of ruin. Losing money is hard, but losing your calm is devastating. You can live with little but you cannot live without peace. You can adapt to a change in lifestyle, but you can't survive long if your mind is constantly at war. And yet, when money runs out, the first thing many people sacrifice is the very thing they need the most: calm. Your heart races, your sleep disappears, anxiety settles in your chest, like an unwanted guest who refuses to leave. because you were taught that safety lies in your account balance, in a steady job, in bills paid on time. And when all that begins to shake, you feel like your life is losing ground, that everything you've built or dreamed of building is crumbling, that the future becomes a threat, not a promise. In those moments, Stoic philosophy appears like a lighthouse in the storm. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility of the soul is the greatest treasure." He didn't say power. He didn't say gold. He didn't say success. He said tranquility of the soul. And he said it as an emperor ruling over a vast empire in the midst of war, plague, and betrayal. He said it as someone who had everything most people dream of, yet understood that without inner peace, all external riches become a burden. So how do you live this lesson in everyday life when the bills pile up and the money is not enough? First, by understanding that losing your calm will not solve your situation. It never does. There isn't a single financial problem that has ever been solved through despair. All emotional chaos does is cloud your judgment, make you react from fear, and end up digging an even deeper hole. Think of it like this. When a ship goes through a storm, the captain's first move is not to scream or curse the weather. The first thing he does is secure the helm and stay on course. The same goes for your life. If your economy is in crisis, your mind must be steadier than ever. Your serenity is the helm that keeps you afloat. Second, by recognizing that scarcity can be a teacher. When you have less, you learn to value more. When you can't buy peace of mind, you discover that maybe it was something you were always meant to build from within. Third, by developing emotional discipline that does not depend on the external. The Stoics spoke of ataraxia, that unshakable state of peace that is not rattled by the highs and lows of life. It's not coldness, it's not indifference, it's the firmness of someone who has chosen not to be a slave to circumstances, but staying calm does not mean pretending to be strong or denying your pain. It means feeling it without letting it consume you. It means acknowledging your fear without allowing it to decide for you. It means accepting your situation without turning it into your identity, because you are not poor for having little money. You are only poor if you have given up internally, if you have abandoned your composure, your courage, your dignity. In scarcity, your impulses invite you to panic. But wisdom whispers, breathe, wait, think, decide with clarity. When things go wrong, the ego shouts, do something now. But the wise soul replies, do what's right, not what's urgent. That is the difference between a life driven by anxiety and a life guided by principles. Maybe you're hearing this with tears in your eyes, with a negative balance, with a weary heart. And I won't tell you that everything will be okay tomorrow, but I can tell you with Stoic certainty that if you keep your calm, you'll have the power to rebuild from zero, because serenity is not a reward you're given when everything is fixed. It's a choice you make, even while everything is falling apart. And that choice, difficult, brave, or quiet, is what separates the one who merely survives from the one who transforms. So today, right here, right now, make this commitment to yourself. My peace is worth more than my fear. My calm is my tool to move forward. I will not give it up, not even in the storm. Maybe the money will return. Maybe not immediately, but if you manage to keep your serenity, you'll no longer depend on fortune to live with dignity. Remember this, it's not your bank account that gives your life value. It's your ability to stand tall when everything shakes. And that, brother, sister, has no price. Stoic lesson. Second, you don't control your circumstances, only your reaction. Picture this scene for a moment. It's night. You're alone. You check your phone and see a bank notification. Your balance is negative. Another bill has gone through. Your breathing speeds up. Your hands sweat. You scan through your latest transactions, hoping for an error. But there is no error. only facts. And then a familiar feeling floods in, almost automatic. That knot in your stomach, that sharp pinch in your chest, that voice shouting inside you, "You're not going to make it, everything's falling apart." Right there, that is where the real test begins. It's not the lack of money that consumes you most. It's the way your mind reacts to it. It's that flood of thoughts crashing in like a storm. Next month will be worse. You're going to lose everything. You're not enough. You're a failure. Sound familiar? It does to many, too many. But Stoicism, ancient and timeless, stands like a firm tree in the face of that storm. And Epictetus, who was born a slave and knew scarcity firsthand, left us a teaching that changes lives. It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about them. Read that again. It's not the facts. It's your interpretation of them. It's not the empty account. It's what you believe that empty account means. Does it mean you're worthless? That all is lost? That there's no way out? Number. It simply means you're in a difficult situation. And like all difficult situations, it can be faced with wisdom or with despair. That part is up to you. Epictetus said that true freedom is not about doing whatever you want, but about not letting the external world dictate how you feel inside. That is freedom. And it's possible, even in the midst of financial crisis. Money comes and goes, jobs change, debts pile up, and eventually get paid off. But your ability to choose your reaction remains with you, always. The question is, are you using it? Most people don't. Most live on autopilot. And when life tightens the grip, the first thing they lose isn't their money. It's their emotional control. Then come the shouting, the anxiety, the impulsive decisions, the stress shopping, the guilt, the comparisons, the insomnia, the disconnection. And none of that is caused by the lack of money. It's caused by not knowing how to respond to it. That is where the Stoic takes the lead. Not because he doesn't feel fear, but because he watches it without letting it take over. Not because he ignores the gravity of the situation, but because he refuses to be paralyzed by it. Because he understands a deep truth. If what's happening isn't within my control, then my focus must be on how I respond, not how I can avoid it. And that's not resignation. It's power. It's regaining control exactly where you lost it. Inside yourself. Think about it. How many times in your life have you stressed over something that eventually worked out? How many sleepless nights over problems that time, action, or even chance ended up resolving? So if you already know that many things are beyond your hands, why keep handing them your peace as well? Stoicism doesn't tell you, be happy in poverty. It tells you, don't let poverty take the one thing you can still keep. Your clear mind, your self-discipline, your dignity. And when you protect that, everything else becomes manageable, because you no longer react from chaos, but from clarity. Need to find new sources of income? You will. Need to sell things, cut expenses, start from scratch? You'll face it, but you'll do it without destroying yourself in the process. Look, you can't change the circumstances already in motion, but you can choose not to add unnecessary suffering to them. The situation is already hard. Don't make it worse by handing your mind over to catastrophe. Instead of thinking, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, what can I do with this situation I'm in? And that's when transformation begins, because once you understand that the only thing that's ever been truly yours is your response, everything changes. You might not be able to control your income today, but you can control your attitude, your thoughts, the way you treat others, the way you speak to yourself. And if you start guarding those things as fiercely as you want to protect your bank account, you'll see that your calm doesn't depend on money. It depends on your philosophy of life, and that you can choose. So today, decide with intention. I can't control what happens to me, but I can control how I act. I can't prevent scarcity, but I can prevent it from destroying me from within. That's where true calm begins. Not the kind that comes when everything is perfect, but the kind you choose when everything is in ruins. And that kind is the most powerful of all. Your serenity must never depend on your financial situation. If you decide today to protect your inner balance, even when money is tight, then subscribe. This space is a refuge for those seeking clarity, resilience, and strength in difficult times. Don't let financial anxiety take the wheel. Here, you'll learn to stay calm precisely when you need it most. Stoic lesson third. Live according to what is essential. There was a time when you believed you needed many things to live well. New clothes every season, the latest phone, spontaneous dinners, vacations to disconnect. A life that seemed normal, a life that society praises. But one day, the money stopped being enough. And then, like a curtain falling, everything was exposed. The appearances, the invented needs, the self-imposed pressures. And behind all of that, what was left was you. You without embellishments. You facing a question that very few people truly dare to ask. What is truly essential to live? Seneca, one of the richest men of his time, once wrote something that still resonates powerfully today. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Read that again. The poor man is the one who needs too much, the one who never has enough, the one enslaved by his desires. And if you think about it, how many of your financial anxieties actually come from what you truly need to live? And how many come from what you believe you need just to avoid feeling less? Think about it. Do you really need that extra subscription? That item you bought out of anxiety? That expensive meal you didn't enjoy because you were stressed? That loan to keep up appearances for a life you're not even living? Financial scarcity, as painful as it is, holds a power that few people recognize. It forces you to be honest with yourself. It forces you to look closely at what truly matters. It forces you to separate the urgent from the unnecessary, and that's where the path toward calm begins. This isn't about romanticizing poverty or pretending it doesn't matter to lack what you need. It's about using this moment to simplify your life, to free yourself from what drains you without bringing peace, to stop carrying what you no longer need. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to live a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." And that phrase is not an empty metaphor. It's a key, a compass, a reminder that you can refocus your life on what's essential, even when everything around you seems to be falling apart. Look at your surroundings, your habits, your priorities, and ask yourself the hard questions. What is truly important to me? What spending brings me closer to peace, and which ones pull me away from it? What am I clinging to, just out of fear of others' judgment? What can I let go of to regain my balance? Because many times it's not the lack of resources that causes suffering. It's the burden of maintaining a life that you can no longer, and don't even want to, carry. And when you let go, when you choose to live with only what's fair, honest, and truly nourishing to your soul, something magical happens. Calm returns, not because you have more, but because you need less. The Stoic has always practiced that way of living. He doesn't wait for crisis to reduce attachment. He trains his mind not to depend on luxury, not to define himself by possessions, not to get lost in superficiality. Seneca even had a radical exercise. He would sleep on the floor some nights, eat only stale bread, and wear simple clothes. Not out of love for suffering, but to remind himself that he could live with little. Not because he liked pain, but because he understood he who knows how to live with little never fears losing everything. You don't need to go that far, but you can ask yourself, what can I simplify today? What expense comes from fear, not need? What would happen if I gave myself permission to live with less and live in peace? Because everything you carry, physically or mentally, costs you. And when money is scarce, it's the best moment to stop paying invisible prices for useless things. Look at your home, your calendar, your to-do list, your bank account, and start letting go. Start prioritizing. Start saying, I don't need this. This doesn't represent me. This pulls me away from myself. That is a powerful form of rebuilding. Not from the outside in, but from the inside out. And that simpler life, more authentic, more grounded, is what brings true stability, because it no longer depends on how much you earn, but on how you live, on how you think, on how you choose, on how you face the inevitable with dignity. So don't fear scarcity. Observe it as an invitation to organize, to cleanse, to return to what is essential. And when you do, you'll discover something that many wealthy people never know: the freedom that comes from not needing much to be happy. That freedom, that calm, it has no price, but it does have tremendous value, and it's only reached by those courageous enough to let go. Stoic lesson 4th. Practice active acceptance. There is a moment in every financial crisis that hurts more than anything else. The moment you realize you can't change what already happened. You can no longer make that wasted money reappear. You can't go back and make that decision with more calm. You can't undo the unnecessary expense you made out of anxiety or fear of others' judgment. The damage is done, and then comes the anguish. An anguish that is born from the rejection of what already is. An anguish that screams from within, "This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. How did I even get to this point?" But no matter how much you deny it, reality remains. The bills keep coming. The debt doesn't disappear. The income remains the same. And you keep feeling like you're drowning. Marcus Aurelius, in his work Meditations, wrote a line that may seem brutal at first glance, yet holds deep wisdom. Love the life you have been given. He doesn't say, love the life you wish for, or love the perfect life. Not even resign yourself to a difficult life. He says, love it, love your life. Even when it's hard, even when you don't have what you want, even when it hurts. And this is not an invitation to passivity. It's not about giving up. It's not about ceasing to act. It's the exact opposite. It's about fully accepting your starting point, so you can act clearly from there. This is called active acceptance, a powerful tool of Stoicism, and one of the master keys to keeping calm when money is tight. Actively accepting your financial situation means looking at your reality with open eyes without sugarcoating it, but also without dramatizing it. It means saying, yes, I'm here. I don't have what I used to have. Maybe I made poor decisions. Maybe there were things outside my control. But I will not waste energy resisting what already is. I will use all my strength to build from here. That is the Stoic attitude. He doesn't deny the storm. He doesn't curse it. He doesn't freeze. He observes it, understands it, and then acts. Epictetus once said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." So if today you're out of money, ask yourself, is it my lack of money that distresses me, or the judgment I have about it? Is it the bill I can't pay, or the story I tell myself about what that says about me? Is the fear real, or a chain of catastrophic thoughts that I'm feeding myself? Active acceptance breaks that cycle. It brings you back to the present. It reminds you that from a place of calm, it's much easier to see solutions. That if you stop fighting against reality, you can start transforming it. This isn't about naive positivity. It's about seeing things as they are, and from there, starting to move. Because as long as you're at war with your own reality, you won't move forward, and that war is what drains you the most. More than scarcity, more than the bills, more than the effort. The internal struggle against the inevitable consumes you, and it only stops when you choose to accept without surrender, to look without dramatizing, to act without despair. Imagine you're in a stormy sea. You struggle to escape, you panic, you scream, and you sink further. But if you stay still, if you float, if you observe, then you can orient yourself, conserve energy, and find a way out. That's what active acceptance does. It doesn't pull you out of the sea, but it gives you the ability to swim with direction instead of drowning in your own resistance. And do you know what happens when you practice this consistently? You begin to discover that even in the midst of scarcity, there is peace available. There are small moments of calm. There is clarity to make better decisions. There are opportunities you hadn't seen before. There is strength you didn't know you had. And that peace doesn't come because everything is fixed. It comes because you let go of the useless battle. It comes because you chose to accept your reality as a platform for action, not a sentence. The difference is subtle, but powerful. Because acceptance doesn't mean saying, I give up. It means saying, this is my life today. And from here, I will make it worthy. I will make it count. I will use it as fertile ground for my growth. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only thing you can truly control. And there lies the key to Stoicism. Focus your energy only on what depends on you. The external situation may remain difficult, but your serenity, your focus, your inner response, that's yours, and no one can take it from you. So the next time you feel paralyzed by the lack of money, stop, breathe, observe, and repeat this phrase like a Stoic mantra. I will not resist what already is. I will accept it firmly and act with clarity. Because from there, from that peace in the midst of chaos, you can begin to rebuild. Stoic lesson 5th. Scarcity reveals your true strength. There's something that life only shows you when it corners you. Something you can't learn from books or by listening to advice. You only discover it when the void arrives, when money runs short, when the bills pile up, when what you once took for granted collapses and you're left with nothing but yourself. It is there in scarcity where you see with piercing clarity what you're made of. And sometimes the truth that appears is not the one you expected. Maybe you find yourself more fragile than you thought, more reactive, more anxious. Maybe you see yourself acting on impulse, trapped in fear, blaming others, desperate to patch the holes at any cost. But if you don't run from that image, if you don't resist it, you can begin to truly see yourself. And that, as painful as it is a gift. Because there is no strength without self-knowledge. And there is no more honest self-knowledge than the kind that emerges when you have nothing left to hide behind. Epictetus said, difficulties are things that show men what they are, not what they pretend to be, not what they claim to be, not what they dream of being, but what they are, here and now, when everything is missing. Scarcity, then, is not only an obstacle, it's a mirror that harshly reveals your weaknesses, your automatic patterns, your most hidden fears. But also, if you have the courage to look beyond the reflection, it reveals something else. Your ability to adapt, your ingenuity, your willpower, your dormant creativity, your dignity, your inner fire. Yes, scarcity can show you that you have more strength than you imagined. But that strength doesn't arrive with shouting or euphoria. It comes quietly. When you decide not to give up, even when everything tells you that you should. It comes when you choose to keep acting with integrity, even when no one is watching. It comes when, instead of panicking, you stay calm. When, instead of complaining, you make a small but firm decision. When you say, today I don't have much, but what I do have, I manage with intention. Today I lack, but I won't degrade myself just to gain more. Today I'm missing things, but I'm not missing myself. That is real strength. Not the kind that boasts, not the kind that flaunts power, but the kind that stands tall when everything is shaking. Marcus Aurelius wrote, within you is a power capable of withstanding any blow. You just have to remember it. And sometimes you only remember it when everything else collapses, when life takes away your crutches, when it forces you to walk on your own. In that moment you realize that money may be gone, but you are still here, thinking, feeling, dreaming, creating, loving, enduring. You discover that your essence was never in your paycheck, or your bank account, or your car, or your clothes. It was in your capacity to rise again every day with purpose, to not allow economic scarcity to become spiritual scarcity, because that's the greatest danger. Not running out of money, but running out of faith, out of purpose, out of dignity, and that's where Stoicism enters. Not as theory, but as a real path through adversity. The Stoic, when scarcity strikes, does not break. He observes, he learns, he disciplines himself. And instead of saying, "This is destroying me," he says, "This reveals me, this strengthens me, this shows me the path to virtue." And if today you are going through something like this, maybe you need to repeat that phrase as an anchor. This scarcity does not define me. It reveals me. It reveals what you need to let go of. It reveals what you need to change. It reveals what you are capable of building from nothing. Seneca said it firmly, "Poverty is not a misfortune for the one who knows how to bear it with dignity." And that dignity is what you must protect with all your being, because true wealth is not in what you have. It's in who you are when you have nothing. It's in your ability to act nobly, even in need. It's in your will to help others, even when you too are in need. It's in your decision not to fall into despair, but to use every day as internal training. Scarcity, if lived with wisdom, becomes your most fertile training ground. And you become something much more valuable than rich. You become strong, wise, free, because the one who grows strong in scarcity does not depend on money to live with meaning. And when money returns, because it will return if you act with patience and strategy, you will be more prepared, not just to manage it, but not to be its slave, to use it consciously, to not lose yourself in its absence nor in its abundance. That is the Stoic's victory, and that can be your victory too. Stoic lesson 6. Don't be emotionally dependent on money. It's easy to say that money doesn't buy happiness until it's gone, until you're counting coins to make it to the end of the week, until your chest aches from thinking about the bills coming due, until you look at the people you love and feel like you're failing them. In that moment, all philosophy is put to the test, and what once seemed like a cheap motivational phrase becomes a truth you need to understand at its roots. Your peace of mind cannot depend on money, because if it does, then you are lost. Not because money isn't important, it is, but because it's unstable. It comes and goes, it slips away, and if your emotional well-being is tied to it, you also vanish. You lose yourself. You crumble. Epictetus warned us bluntly, "Only what is within your power can bring you freedom. What depends on others or on chance enslaves you." And money, no matter how hard you work, will always have a part that's beyond your control. The economy shifts, prices rise, jobs may be lost, businesses can fail. So, will you allow your peace to rise and fall like the stock market? Will you hand over your emotional state to a number in your account, to a receipt, to a piece of paper? Seneca said that the wise man can be poor without being ruined, because material poverty doesn't destroy the soul. What destroys it is dependence. It's that toxic relationship where your self-worth depends on how much you earn. Your sense of safety depends on whether you can make ends meet. Your peace depends on whether you can afford something. And just like that, without realizing it, money becomes your master. It emotionally enslaves you. When you have it, you feel capable. When you don't, you feel less. And most dangerously, when you don't have it, you're willing to do anything to get it back. That's where desperate decisions are born. Bad partnerships, abandoning your values, deals that betray your essence, transactional relationships. Because when your peace depends on money, your moral compass is distorted. But there is an alternative, and it's not about pretending to be strong, nor about denying money's importance. It's about building a peace that comes from within, a calm that cannot be bought or lost. How do you build that? With awareness, with inner work, with philosophy, with daily practice. Start like this. Look in the mirror and speak the truth. Say to yourself, "Today I am afraid. Today I don't have enough." but I will not allow that to define my worth. Then act with firmness. Do what you can with what you have, and do it with dignity. Cut unnecessary expenses without feeling defeated. Offer your talents with humility, even if you're not yet paid as you'd like. Accept help without shame, and offer help even in scarcity when you can. Each of those actions strengthens your inner muscle. The one that doesn't depend on money, the one that upholds your character even when you lack resources. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not let what you cannot control disturb your peace." And that's the core of this lesson. Money is not the enemy. The enemy is the emotion you built around money. It's the identity you handed over to it. You thought you were worth more when you earned more. You thought you were important if you could afford everything. You thought that having money gave you security. And now that it's not there, you feel like everything is falling apart. But that's not true. Your value hasn't changed. Your essence is still intact. Your ability to love, to think, to act with ethics is still there. That is what matters. And that's what Stoicism invites you to remember every day. Because when you understand this, something powerful happens. Money stops being your master and becomes your tool. And tools are used wisely, but they are not loved. They are not worshipped. Their absence is not mistaken for your failure. Today, maybe you don't have money. But if you cultivate this Stoic mindset, you will gain something far more valuable. You'll gain emotional independence. You'll gain inner strength. You'll gain freedom. And when money returns, because it will, if you stay steady and strategic, it will no longer control you. It will not manipulate you. It will not make you forget who you are, because you've already learned to live without depending on it. You've already discovered that your peace is not in the numbers, but in your philosophy, and that no one can take from you. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to protect your peace, even in the midst of scarcity. Subscribe and comment, "My peace is not for sale," to reaffirm your commitment to a conscious and serene life beyond money. This is only the first step toward a life guided by inner strength and clarity. When you reach the 7th lesson, you'll discover a perspective that could transform the way you face every crisis. Don't miss it. It might be the change your mind was waiting for. Let's keep going. Stoic lesson 7th. Remember the impermanence of all things. When you're going through a financial crisis, everything feels eternal. It seems like money will never return, that the anxiety is your new normal, that the knot in your stomach every time you check your bank account or look at your unpaid bills will never go away. And in that illusion of the pain being eternal, you lose faith. You lose vision. You even lose the will to try. But Stoicism reminds you of something fundamental. Nothing lasts. Nothing is forever. Not success, not ruin. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by wars, plagues, betrayals, and challenges that would have broken any man, wrote, "Everything you see will change, and so will you." That is the essence of this lesson. The financial scarcity you're going through doesn't define your life, only a part of it. It's a chapter. Painful, yes. Exhausting too, but a chapter, not the whole story. And this is where many get confused. They believe their present is their fate, that if they're in debt, broke, or without income today, then that must be their future too. But that's not true. Your present is only permanent if you choose to remain there, if you allow this difficult moment to define you, if you give up. A Stoic doesn't deny the pain of the now, but neither does he exaggerate it. He observes it, accepts it, and then acts, because he knows everything changes, that the storm will pass, and that his task is to stay steady while it does. And this is where a central concept of Stoicism comes into play: impermanence. Life is movement. Everything that seems solid today can dissolve. Everything that seems lost today can be reborn. Everything that crushes you today can cease to weigh you down. Marcus Aurelius meditated every morning on this truth. The universe changes. Life is opinion. Do you know what that means? so that even when nothing seems to move on the outside, you can change on the inside. And that internal change gives you power. It gives you direction. It gives you hope. That's why when money is tight, don't say, everything is lost. Say this too shall pass, but in the meantime, I will grow stronger. Imagine this for a moment. A stone in the middle of a river. The water hits it, covers it, wears it down, but the stone doesn't move. Do you know what happens over time? The water continues on its path, and the stone remains, more polished, more solid, more serene. That's you, if you embrace this lesson. Be like that stone. Let the river of scarcity flow over you, but don't let it carry you away. Don't let it break you. Grow stronger in the waiting. Grow wiser in the most uncertain moment. And remember this too. Many people you admire today, those with stability or abundance, they too went through moments like yours. They also had nothing. They also doubted themselves, but they endured. And what seemed like the end turned out to be the beginning of their true transformation. That can be true for you too, if you don't define yourself by this moment, if you don't chain yourself to today's pain. Stoicism teaches you to live with the present, not in the present. There's a big difference. To live in the present can lead to panic. You only see the empty account, the uncertainty, the anxiety. To live with the present is to acknowledge your reality but not reduce yourself to it. It is to say, I'm here but I'm also heading somewhere else. That is the perspective of the wise. That is the serenity of the Stoic. Here's a reminder you can repeat when fear takes over. Nothing is eternal, and I am changing with every decision I make. Those decisions, even the small ones, a purchase you avoid, a call you make, an idea you act on, a moment of calm you choose, are shaping the tomorrow you cannot yet see. So when money is scarce, don't fall into the trap of thinking, this is how it will always be. Say instead, this is now, but my now doesn't define me. My response will. And then, with that certainty, go on, walk forward, do what you can, and keep your heart serene. Because this chapter, like all chapters, will also come to an end. Stoic lesson 8. Focus on practical solutions, not on fears. When money runs low, your first enemy isn't the empty account or the stack of unpaid bills. It's fear. That fear that settles into your mind like a persistent echo. What will I do if this gets worse? What if I can't get out of this? What if I lose everything I have? It's not just uncertainty, it's anticipatory anxiety. A form of mental torture that doesn't need facts, only assumptions. And once the mind falls into that loop, it stops looking for solutions. It starts seeking drama. Epictetus stated it with brutal clarity. We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens to us. You may have the exact same income as yesterday, but if today your mind begins to whisper that it's no longer enough, then panic will appear, even if nothing has actually changed. Fear is a silent thief. It steals your focus, your energy, your serenity, and when fear paralyzes you, you lose the most precious thing you need to move forward, your ability to act with clarity. Stoicism is not the absence of emotion. It's the art of seeing with precision what is within your control and what is not. And then, from that clarity, doing what is necessary, calmly. When everything seems chaotic outside, your first task is not to fix it all at once. Your first task is to bring order within. Ask yourself, what thoughts are amplifying this fear? Am I seeing reality or my catastrophic interpretation of it? A flooded mind never makes good decisions. And in times of crisis, bad decisions come at a high cost. That's why the Stoic takes a deep breath and turns to his inner training. He doesn't throw himself into emotional chaos. He does what he can with what he has from where he stands. Imagine being trapped in a dark room. Fear screams, run, escape. But wisdom whispers, wait, look for a flashlight, find the door. That's the Stoic approach. It's not about denying the hardship of your situation. It's about refusing to surrender your mind to despair. And you do that through focused action. What can you do right now? Maybe you can't get a job today, but you can improve your resume. Maybe you can't pay all your debts this week, but you can renegotiate one. Maybe you're not generating major income yet, but you can organize your spending, prioritize what's vital, stop postponing what's essential. Concrete action, no matter how small. That is power. That is how you leave fear behind. Seneca said, "It is more important to know how to live than to know how to make money." But knowing how to live includes knowing how to hold on to peace, while doing everything you can to move forward. In times of scarcity, it's common to fall into two extremes, paralysis or impulsiveness, and both come from the same place, fear. The one who freezes, surrenders to panic, and delays the important. The one who rushes forward takes desperate actions that often make things worse. The Stoic does neither. The Stoic evaluates, prioritizes, and acts. This might mean having uncomfortable conversations, selling things you once clung to, letting go of expensive habits, redefining your needs. But that is not weakness. That is maturity, because financial maturity isn't about having more money. It's about learning to live better with what you have, without losing your calm or your dignity. And you know what happens when you start acting with that level of clarity? Fear loses its grip, because fear is not fed by reality, it's fed by your inaction. When you do something, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, fear shrinks. And suddenly you begin to see options you couldn't see before. That's how a soul trained in philosophy works. It doesn't collapse because the paycheck is short. It doesn't fall into victimhood because others have more. It doesn't give in to chaos either. The Stoic mind sits at the center of the storm and asks, "What can I do today?" And it does it. Maybe you won't change your whole life in a day, but a single day lived in serenity can change the way you view life. Practical, steady, and calm action is your best antidote against financial anxiety. You don't need to have everything solved to be at peace. You just need to stop feeding fear with catastrophic fantasies and start feeding yourself with real decisions. And if you don't know where to start here. Be still, make space, do something. If this knowledge is helping you, subscribe and join this Stoic refuge, where we cultivate inner peace even when money is scarce. Here you'll learn how to protect your mind in hard times, how to make decisions with clarity, and how to live with emotional strength beyond material circumstances. Your serenity is your greatest wealth. Stoic lesson. 9th, your self-worth is not your bank account. When money disappears, it often feels like your dignity disappears with it. And no, that's not an exaggeration. There's a quiet, almost shameful sadness that shows up when you can't invite someone for a coffee, when you can't take your kids out, when you avoid social gatherings because you can't spend, or when you have to explain that you can't afford something. Yet, you're not just losing money. You feel like you're losing image, worth, status. And you know what's most cruel? Many times you begin to look at yourself with contempt. You begin to feel less than, less capable, less worthy, less valuable. But that judgment doesn't come from the balance in your account. It comes from a deep conditioning that society has planted in us. You are what you produce. You're worth what you earn. You're respected if you can prove it. And this is nothing new. The Stoics saw it centuries ago as a dangerous trap. Seneca wrote, "A poor man is not the one who has little, but the one who wants more than he needs." But he also made it clear, many possess wealth, but are not worthy of it. In other words, having money doesn't automatically make you worthy, and not having it doesn't make you less honorable. A person's true worth lies in how they live, not in how much they accumulate. And that truth becomes even clearer when money is scarce. Because that's when what you are, without decoration, is revealed. What remains when all the superficial layers fall away. What rises when you have nothing left to impress with, only something to stand on. And that's the exact moment where the Stoic grows. When you can no longer use your credit card as a shield, when you can no longer hide behind a job title, expensive clothes, a restaurant, a number. There you are, just you. And you know what? That's enough. Your dignity isn't in what you can buy, but in how you choose to live, even when you can't buy anything. Are you still generous even if you don't have much? Are you still just even when you feel overwhelmed? Are you still serene even when you're afraid? Then you haven't lost anything important. Society may have assigned value to your belongings, but your soul holds a value that no market can determine. Marcus Aurelius understood this with sharp precision. The soul becomes stronger through adversity. And he also wrote, "Don't let your mind judge as loss what may be opportunity." If you're without money but not without virtue, you're better off than you think. Yes, you need income. Yes, you need to solve things. Yes, you need to act. But you don't need to destroy yourself in the process. You don't need to speak to yourself with contempt or lose faith in who you are. An empty account is not an empty soul. A wallet without bills is not a life without purpose. You can be in crisis and still be valuable. You can be broke and still be respectable. You can be at your lowest and still choose to live with honor. That is Stoic dignity. It's not pride or vanity. It's an inner fire that doesn't depend on how much you have, but on how much you stand by yourself. And the best part, when you stop tying your value to money, you begin to act with more freedom. You no longer decide out of shame, but out of clarity. You no longer spend from pressure, but from necessity. You no longer work from fear, but from conviction, and that gives you a power no amount of money can buy, the awareness that you are valuable for who you are, not for what you appear to be. Want to get out of this crisis? Start by recovering the way you see yourself. Don't speak to yourself like a failure. Don't compare yourself to those who seem to be doing better. Don't punish yourself for not being able to do more. Do the best you can from where you are. And do it with your head held high, because if Stoicism teaches anything, it's that there's no greater wealth than self-mastery, and no greater poverty than handing your worth over to what you can't control. Today, maybe you don't have much, but if you don't betray yourself, if you continue cultivating virtue, if you keep acting with integrity, then you already have what matters most. And that, even in the harshest scarcity, is enough to rebuild everything. Stoic lesson. 10th, use the crisis as a teacher. What if I told you that this financial crisis that's causing you so much distress didn't come to destroy you, but to shape you? It may sound cruel, because losing stability, having to stand in line to ask for help, facing the anxiety of not knowing if you'll be able to cover the basics, it's an experience that wears you down, that steals your sleep, that drags your dignity if you're not careful. But it is also, and this is rarely said out loud, an experience that wakes you up. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, with all his power and wealth, used to write at night that every crisis was an opportunity to train the soul. That in hardship, the human being stops sleeping in comfort and starts to see what truly matters. And you, who are now facing a financial storm, have in front of you a teacher, one that teaches brutally, yes, but also honestly. A financial crisis forces you to look inward. It shows you whether your identity was too tied to status, whether your self-esteem depended on your spending ability, whether your worth as a partner, friend, or parent was based on what you could offer, or on who you truly are when everything falls apart. The lack of money tests your relationships. Who stays by your side when you can no longer treat or share? Who gets uncomfortable with your vulnerability? Who offers a helping hand without making you feel indebted? And it also tests your character. Do you remain just when you're tempted to take advantage? Do you remain generous when you barely have enough? Do you remain honest when lying would seem easier? A crisis like this brings your truth to light. No makeup, no stage props, no decorations, and that is its power. It forces you to see yourself, to see what you've avoided, to see what you've delayed, to see your fears, your habits, your decisions, your excuses, to see yourself with clarity, and from there to choose differently. The Stoics didn't believe in punishment. They believed in training. The universe, they said, is not cruel, it is demanding, and it places in front of each person the challenges necessary to develop virtue. And if you're now facing scarcity, maybe it's because you're ready to stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. So change the question. Instead of repeating, "Why is this happening to me?" start asking, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" Maybe it's trying to teach you to manage your resources better, to stop spending to fill emotional voids, to stop relying on unstable income, to learn to say no, to let go of what weighs you down, to organize your finances with emotional intelligence. Maybe it's trying to teach you humility, the kind that's not learned in books, but in the supermarket when you have to choose what to take home. The kind that grows when you ask for help without shame, recognizing that all of us, at some point, need support. Maybe it's trying to teach you to trust, not in luck, not in empty promises, but in your own ability to act, to adapt, to reinvent yourself, to get up one more time. Because the truth is, no one comes out of a crisis the same. You either come out more bitter, more afraid, more closed off, or you come out wiser, more centered, more free. And that choice, though it may not seem like it, belongs to you. Because you can use this scarcity as an excuse to sink, or as a push to transform yourself. You can let the anxiety cloud you, or you can use it as a signal that something must change, and change it courageously. You can keep repeating that everything is wrong, or you can write a new story, with fewer things but more truth, with fewer luxuries but more peace, with less external approval but more inner dignity. Money comes and goes, you know that, but what you learn now in this difficult time stays with you forever. If you embrace this crisis as a teacher, it becomes a silent guide that walks with you every time life starts to shake again. And the next time abundance arrives, because yes, it will. You won't waste it. You won't use it to run from yourself. You won't need to show off, because you'll have learned how to be well, even without much. That is the greatest lesson this crisis can give you. And if you receive it with humility, you will become invincible, because you will no longer fear losing it all, knowing that even with little, you can live with calm, with virtue, and with meaning. That's how the soul is trained. That's how a wiser life is rebuilt. That's how despair is defeated, through awareness. That's how we honor the Stoic path. There's something no one teaches you when you're a child. No one warns you that one day you'll have to stare at your almost empty refrigerator and do impossible math to survive. No one tells you that money can become so scarce it turns into a constant, suffocating, almost unbearable concern. And the worst part isn't just material scarcity. The worst part is what starts happening inside your mind when you feel like you can't go on. Suddenly, dignity feels fragile. Self-esteem collapses with every unpaid bill. Confidence in the future shatters when it seems like all your efforts are not enough. And you ask yourself, where did I go wrong? When did I lose control of my life? But here comes the truth not everyone dares to face. You're not alone. This silent struggle is faced by thousands, millions, every day. Men and women who wake up with fear, who juggle to put food on the table, who hide their anguish behind a polite smile. And no, they're not weak. They're not failures. They're human beings navigating a tough, sometimes unfair, sometimes merciless system. And still, they're here. You're here, and that changes everything. Because what truly defines you is not how much money is in your bank account, it's how much courage is in your soul to keep moving forward. How much composure you can hold in the middle of chaos, how much wisdom you can cultivate just when it seems like everything is falling apart. Today we didn't come to promise you wealth or shortcuts. There are no magic formulas. But there is a refuge, a space of clarity, of value, of firm principles, where you can find guidance not to get lost. That's what Stoicism represents. A philosophy for hard times, a way of seeing the world that does not deny pain, but transforms it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And you know it. When money runs short, what you need most is mental strength. A lucid thought can save you from the abyss of despair. An act of virtue can restore your dignity. A conscious decision can open a new path. That's why what we did in this session wasn't just talk about the problem. It was to remind you who you are in the midst of it. It was to return to you the control, not of your external circumstances, but of your inner power. Breathe. Let these words settle. Be silent for a moment and feel your heart beat. That heartbeat is priceless. That heartbeat is your true capital. You have life. You have awareness. You have the ability to act, to think, to rise again. As long as that remains within you, you are not defeated. The Stoic sees in every crisis a training, sees in every lack a necessary pruning, sees in every loss a lesson, and you can do the same. Does it hurt not to be able to give more to your children, your family, yourself? Turn that pain into fuel to redirect your energy with meaning. Are you tormented by falling into debt or making poor decisions? Transform that guilt into learning and begin to choose differently. Do you feel ashamed to ask for help or not have what others do? Remember that no object replaces the value of a clear mind and an honest heart. This space was made for that. To remind you that your worth doesn't fluctuate with the market, that your power doesn't depend on a paycheck, that your peace doesn't lie in consumption, but in consciousness. And if this message resonated with you, if these words touched something within you, if you felt accompanied, understood, or even motivated, then don't leave in silence. Subscribe, not as an empty action, but as a commitment to yourself, to your transformation, to your serenity, to your will not to be overcome by despair. Leave us a comment. My peace is worth more. Write it, affirm it, make it part of your journey. And don't just write it, live it. Let every decision you make from today onward be an act of self-respect. Let your rebuilding not depend on the money that comes, but on the peace you choose to cultivate day by day, thought by thought. Because calm is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of wisdom, and you just proved you are willing to seek it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being part of this community of strong, conscious, and courageous souls. We'll meet again in the next Stoic session. Your voice is essential here. Every reflection strengthens and uplifts our community, reflecting the true value of each individual and contributing to our shared Stoic identity. The reflection that receives the most support will be pinned as the banner of this community of Stoic minds, a community that does not flee from pain, but walks through it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. Entering this Stoic community is breaking the chains that limit you and building an inner fortress no one can tear down. Follow us if you never want to miss another Stoic reflection from us again. Remember, every decision shapes your character. In the pinned comment, you'll find 2 paths, and each exists for a reason. There are decisions that seem small, but change everything. If something inside you shifted while listening to this, don't let it pass. Subscribing is not just a click, it is a decision to no longer live asleep, to walk with awareness, with courage, with purpose. And if you choose to sustain this space as a member, you're not giving, you're planting. Thanks to you, this flame doesn't go out. Your presence allows us to continue sharing wisdom in a noisy world, building together a community of awakened, steady, and free souls. See you in our next gathering in Stoicism for Winners, where we will continue exploring the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Now, take the opportunity to deepen your understanding of Stoicism with new recommended sessions. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.